Welcome, friend,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is your first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Well, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Bienvenue. Welcome. Willkommen. All good people of planet Earth. We know you're out there.
All of our nieces and nephews out there in listener land.
Right.
In countries great and small, and I must say, startlingly, in countries where you probably shouldn't be listening to us. So please do so with great care.
Yeah.
But you are all the children of the uncles, or something like that. So, gosh, episode 109. What a show!
Here we are.
Uncle Doug, you've got a thing.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to announce our sponsor this week. This week's episode is brought to us by Trump Golf Resort in Doral, Florida.
Oh, God damn it.
Mention our name at booking and get 2% off a weekend getaway package. Trump Doral, where the motto is, let's see, we need the money. Oh, God, please, we need the money. They're going to take my thumbs.
That's fantastic. Thank you to that fake sponsor and all our real ones.
That's right. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the impending religious civil war and the nutballs in the White House who are going to start it.
Yes, indeed you are.
And I'm going to talk about how that burning in the bosom is probably just heartburn, and everybody gets it.
Yeah, and I am actually, I swear to God, this is not a drill. I'm going to end Exodus for us, or at least our examination thereof.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We will see.
And I just want to make a quick announcement for all our listeners out there in the world that we've recently gotten some amazing correspondence from people who've just found the podcast, and it's been super positive in dealing with their traumas and isolation. So, as you guys know, that's the mission here. So that's what we started this little soapbox to do. So in the interest of expanding our reach and hopefully helping out some more people who could use a laugh or a reassuring voice in a lonely moment, do this for us. Go to howtoheretic.com, go to the search function and look up a segment that you liked and that you think might be appreciated by someone who could use it. Copy the link and send it to them. We three almost managed to get our shit together every week to put something out we hope you guys enjoy. So take a second and do this for us and for someone who you think it will benefit. And, thank you so much for the amazing emails we've gotten these past few weeks from some very brave, believe me, and wonderful people, on their journey. So we love you. Keep it coming.
Yeah.
And so will we.
Chicka-chicka. Hey, Uncle Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Uncle Kermit.
Why are there so many? Sorry, I just had a mouthful of water. That was probably the wrong time for me to hydrate, wasn't it?
It's fine. It's fine.
Songs about rainbows.
So here's what I'm thinking about. I am thinking that our country, if it needs one thing,
yes,
and one thing alone, it's spiritual leadership.
Oh, thank you for saying it.
I just feel
Thank
like,
you.
Yeah.
And we have it. We have it.
And thank God.
With the most godly man the White House has ever enclosed.
Yeah. Finally, we got rid of that church attending fella that professed his Christianity all the time.
And liked his children and his wife.
Yeah.
That closet atheist who went to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Muslim.
Well, we all wish he would come out as atheist. But anyway, we got rid of him and traded up for 2 Corinthians himself.
That's right.
Yes. Who may, in fact, and it gives me no pleasure to say this, who may, in fact, be the first truly atheist president of the United States.
No, does it count as an atheist if you think that you yourself are God?
No, you are not. Thank you. You are not an atheist if you believe in a God.
Right.
Even if
it's
it's one
you.
very close to you.
Well, dear uncles, there are in these times so many religious people to pick on.
Yeah.
But before we go down another rabbit hole stuffed full of hypocrisy, bigotry, and graft and stupidity that has become kind of our speciality, I would like to address what has become by default an all too frequent focus of this podcast. I am making a public appeal to the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, no.
A.k.a. the church formerly known as Mormon, to please just give us a little time off from your shenanigans.
Oh, shit.
Just a week ago, we did a big recap on Mormon General Conference. So I was
You
hoping...
did. We didn't even pay attention.
Yes, I put you through a recap. Exactly.
Yeah.
I put you through a recap.
I feel like I was roofied. I don't even remember what happened in that.
I thought we could have a few weeks off from anything related to the Mormon Church, and instead, have some fun at the expense of the myriad other cults and stupid stories and corrupt pastors out there. But alas, it seems that the brethren can't go a fucking news cycle without smashing their sagging chodes against the windshield of a burning monster truck for all the world to see. So while we'll resist the temptation to talk about Apostle Dallin H. Oakes' appalling comments on LGBTQ rights this week, we will at least acknowledge them.
The next prophet of the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's one 94-year-old heartbeat away, 95-year-old heartbeat away from the middle podium.
He's always going down the stairs second right after him with just one hand out.
Yeah, exactly.
So we won't talk about his comments, but we'll at least acknowledge them in order to plead with the Mormon leadership to leave us the fuck alone for a while. Just because you see a rake doesn't mean you have to jump on it with both feet. Just because someone's having a perfectly nice life that you don't approve of doesn't mean you have to take a shit on it. You have plenty of tax-exempt shopping malls to manage, so get to it.
Word.
With that out of the way, I would like to talk about another racist, pointless, and dangerous old white man, this time in the form of
Colonel
Pastor
Sanders.
Oh, okay.
No. Sorry, I missed that.
Next time.
Yeah.
This time in the form of Pastor Robert Jeffress. It is pronounced Jeffress. Fuck! I got it wrong. It's Jeffers, not Jeffress. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But it's spelled, how do you spell it?
It's spelled Jeffress, F-F-R-E-S-S, but it's Jeffers is how you say it.
That's how, that may be how you say it.
Yeah.
It's not how I say it.
Call him whatever you want.
I say it dingle shithead.
That's pretty nice. As we have talked about in the past, this is not meant to be a political, a topical, or even a very good podcast. But from time to time, especially in this era, politics swerves into our lane like a drunk Matt Gaetz drifting into oncoming traffic because he's trying to keep his homemade swastika armband from falling off. And so, a few weeks ago, one Pastor Robert Jeffers appeared as a guest on Fox and Friends and laid out this gem early in the morning for his followers. Quote, "I have never seen the evangelical Christians more angry over any issue than this attempt to illegitimately remove the president from office, overturn the 2016 election, and negate the votes of millions of evangelicals in the process. They know the only impeachable offense that President Trump has committed was beating Hillary Clinton in 2016. If President Trump is removed from office, it will cause a civil war-like fracture in this nation from which our country will never heal." That's nice.
Yeah, just whenever the other side of the political divide engages in totally normal, absolutely like down the barrel constitutional action, that's civil war. Civil war. That's right.
And it's odd to me that the side that got their asses handed to them in the Civil War keeps pining for it to happen again.
This time.
We'll get him now.
So
Yeah.
Can I just say, by the way, that I just looked up Robert Jeffress, and I'm looking at it. He looks like a cross between like Mr. Rogers and a Keebler elf. I don't. He's.
I have kind of dawn knots after a meth binge. Yeah.
And then after that statement, as I'm sure our listeners are aware, President Trump tweeted it out. Yeah, that's the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, the man with the nuclear codes in his breast pocket, openly threatening violence if he's impeached. And
Yeah,
if you
sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was going to say, if you think that's not unnerving, go read the comments to that tweet, or rather, don't do that.
Yeah, I just looked up the definition of stochastic terrorism, the use of mass public communication, usually against a particular individual or group, which incites or inspires acts of terrorism which are statistically probable but happen seemingly at random. So,
Right.
Stochastic terrorist, President Trump. Continue.
Yeah. Okay. For you out there lucky enough not to have ever heard of Robert Jeffress until now, let me ruin your day. And God, I got to tell you, if there's a front line in the modern culture war, it is most certainly the Wikipedia page for Pastor Robert Jeffress.
Yeah?
Yeah, each paragraph is written either by a total acolyte or a sworn enemy.
Yeah, well,
It's pretty hilarious.
sounds about right.
I'm sure it's changed while we've been speaking.
Hey, you know what? If our listeners want to get on that, go for it.
Get in there.
Yeah.
Dive into the fray.
You kids have fun.
Jeffress's pedigree and career in the evangelical movement are basically indistinguishable from all the other pastors we've talked about. In utterly predictable fashion, prepare for a tale of greed, dishonesty, and bigotry that can only truly be described as evangelical. Born in Texas in 1955, the state, not a city that I could find, just the state. Because what's the
What are
difference?
you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Jeffress would go on to earn degrees from Baylor, Dallas Theological Seminary, Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and Dallas Baptist University. So,
Yeah, those are all dumb, and you shouldn't get degrees for any of those. Sorry.
No, that's a controversial position to take on this podcast. He bounced around as on the pastor circuit and the Christian broadcast circuit for a while, building a following. His television program, which he still has, called Pathway to Victory, is broadcast in more than 28 countries.
Victory of what?
I know.
Over whom?
I tried to watch it. It's unwatchable. And then I watched one episode, and then Comcast said I had to pay for the next one. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, right.
Fuck that.
A line I'm not going to cross.
Definitely not.
The radio version of his show is heard in 195 countries. So very few places on God's good earth you can go to not hear this guy.
We have over 195 countries.
That's right. I think we can chalk up a win for North Korea today, guys.
Yeah, right. I'm going to Saudi Arabia. I need to get away from this guy.
No doubt. In 2013, he had his big break when he took over the First Baptist Church of Dallas and oversaw the construction of a $130 million campus. So pass that plate around. He is the author of over 20 books, including such classic titles as America at the Crossroads, Countdown to the Apocalypse, The Truth About Angels, and, of course, Twilight's Last Gleaming. So,
Twilight's is that a sparkly vampire fan fiction?
That's right. It's his mash note to Robert Pattinson.
I don't
get
know.
it. He's hot in a weird way. I totally get it.
I'm guessing he's Team Jacob. That's just my
I'm team
personal
whatever
guess.
that character's name was. I can't remember.
as we'll see, I think he'd be happily on both teams. It's in his political views where Jeffress really shines. Now, here's where I set up the world's most flammable straw man and then fire it into the sun. After Charlottesville, in which a group of uneducated incels succeeded only in making tiki torches actually somewhat menacing, before running over Heather Heyer, of course, Jeffress went on the record to say, quote, "Let there be no misunderstanding, racism is a sin, period. And that white supremacy and neo-Nazism are repulsive and totally contradictory to the teachings of God, and that there has been a failure on the part of the church, even a failure of conservative Christians in decades past, to denounce racism."
Okay.
That sounds nice.
I'm kind of on board with that.
Right.
That sounds like a good thing.
Before he said all that, did he say, "These are things I don't believe and would never say in my right mind"?
Right? Because
Colon.
of course, those statements can be tempered a bit by the fact that Jeffress is one of the most vocal and strident evangelical voices in support of Trump. It's tantamount to denouncing cannibalism while helping Jeffrey Dahmer stuff a homeless person into his trunk.
Yeah, it feels about that.
Yeah. And that relationship with Trump is the only reason we know of him. But before we get into that, let's put on our hazmat suits and wade into the rotting sludge that is the worldview of one of the most influential religious people in America. Now, I know I kind of said I didn't want to talk about Mormonism today, mere minutes ago, but if no one else is going to tell the truth anymore, why should I?
Fake news.
Jeffress has very strong views on Mormonism, which he describes as a cult and a heresy from the pit of hell.
Whoa.
To be fair, though, he thinks the same thing about Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, the J-Dubs, and the Catholics.
He seems nice.
Yeah.
He seems nice.
It's really funny that his religious views are pretty close to accurate. He's just off by one. Yeah. So, famously during the 2012 presidential campaign, he championed Rick Perry as his candidate of choice and took several swipes at Mormonism and its mayonnaise avatar, Mitt Romney. However, in a completely precedented act of hypocrisy, he endorsed and campaigned for Romney when he secured the nomination. The reason, of course, for this endorsement was that, while Mormons might be evil cultists, they're no satanic Kenyans.
I think we now know what path to victory means.
Exactly. Right.
Back whoever's winning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the eve of the 2012 election, he made this shocking statement, quote, "I want you to hear me tonight. I'm not saying that President Obama is the Antichrist. I'm not saying that at all. One reason I know he's not the Antichrist is the Antichrist is going to have much higher poll numbers when he comes." President Obama is not the Antichrist, but what I'm saying is this. The course he is choosing to lead our nation is paving the way for the reign of the Antichrist.
Wow.
Well, you know what?
Partially
I don't
true.
think he's wrong.
Right.
Exactly. 8 years of a nice, competent Christian technocrat that happened to be black, and everybody went crazy, and then here we are now.
Yep.
We have Melania thinks Christmas is like Slovenian blood fountains. So...
just leave it to the Antichrist to send a black dude in to pave the way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just racism.
Yeah.
Well,
Classic Antichrist antics.
And it will come as no surprise to you that Jeffress thinks that the gay sex is icky, which must obviously be the reason he can't stop thinking about it.
It's pretty icky, guys. Let me tell you. Yeah,
And
it
in
can
fact,
be.
Our friend Jeffress thinks about gay sex quite a bit. He's called same-sex marriages counterfeit, and to support that, he cites, of course, Romans 1:27, which reads, quote, "And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense for their error, which was meat." That's meat.
So working that
not
which is
meat.
unseemly is clearly the shaft. And
I thought that was the balls.
Yeah,
The
maybe.
balls were kind of
maybe.
unseemly.
And then
Yeah.
the meat is the shaft. Okay.
We got
Cracked
And
it.
of course, that's MEET, not MEAT, but they chose the word themselves, so...
It's their word.
Yep. In his speech titled "Gay is Not Okay," he declared,
Wow,
quote,
what a great... Can I just pause for a moment to commend him on his title? Because that's it rhymes. It's
concise.
it's concise. That's true.
It's dumb
Yet
enough for his followers.
profound on several levels. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
works
goes
in
deep.
so many ways.
Right.
Yeah.
In that speech, he declared, quote, "What homosexuals do is filthy. It is so disgusting that it is beyond description." Now, quick side note, according to Pornhub, VidAngel, and the aforementioned Book of Romans, gay sex most definitely can be described.
Yeah.
Also, according to all of those, not exclusive to gays.
Right.
None
That's
of
right.
those acts are exclusive to gays.
Right.
Also, he's very clearly just talking about gay men and ignoring, as they all do, the fact that there's just throngs of lesbians in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And if there's
by
any-
people. And,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, is this the one with the fucking pool boy?
No,
Or is that
that's
they
a
all
different
have
one.
pool boy?
They all-
Oh,
are
he
you
has
sure?
a pool boy. You know there's
They've
a
all
pool
got
boy
pool
involved.
boys.
But he hasn't been caught with one yet.
But to your point, Uncle Dan, that one thing that might, more than anything else, call into question his heterosexuality is his lack of obsession on lesbians. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Right.
And then he goes on to say, and it is their filthy behavior that explains why they are so much more prone to disease. Nice guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There are, of course, hundreds of clips of him on YouTube, and for my sins, I watched many of them. There is no subject that animates him more than two dicks touching. So there are
Right.
clips and clips and clips of him railing about the gay agenda, the gay lobby, and the boundless suffering of oppressed bakers, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back really quickly to the whole the excess disease thing, because if that's his argument, he should be 100% pro-lesbian, because
That's right.
Of all of the groups of gay,
Sexually
straight,
active people. Yeah.
lesbians are the least likely to get any kind of venereal disease
That's right.
or sexually transmitted infection. So
He should join me in that position.
yes, indeed.
So I'm going to make a prediction. As the two of you are fully aware, I have a wee bit of arachnophobia, such that I have nearly
What?
abandoned
You?
a car on a busy freeway because there was a spider in it.
It's true. It's true. I was in the passenger seat, and Doug nearly, we were on the way to Niagara Falls going like, I don't know, kilometers, 43 million kilometers per hour. And a spider the size of a sesame seed got on Doug's hand, and we all nearly died.
It's not about the size.
Tuck and
Big
roll,
girl's
Doug.
blouse.
So the other day, a friend of mine told me a joke that with all of these pastors who are railing against homosexuality turning out to be gay, I am surprised that I am, in fact, not a spider. So my prediction is that somewhere on Monsieur Jeffress' hard drive, there is a somewhat hidden and oft-opened file called Financial Records, so stuffed full of dicks that it would make Freddie Mercury blush.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Jeffress and Donald Trump. Early in the 2016 campaign...
It's also stuffed full of dicks.
Yeah. The biggest dick of them all.
Yeah. Early in the 2016 campaign, Jeffress was actually a backer of Ben Carson because Jeffress can pick a winner. But pretty early on, Jeffress went all in for Trump, claiming in 2016 that Christians who did not support Trump were, quote, fools motivated by pride rather than principle. Whew.
Wow.
This enthusiastic fellatio did not go unnoticed, and Trump named Jeffress as one of the founding members of his Evangelical Advisory Board and White House Faith Initiative, so named, presumably because Legion of Doom was trademarked. Who sits on President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board? Well, such dim lights as James Dobson, Jerry Falwell Jr.,
J-File Jew,
Ralph Reed, and Paula White, whom we discussed back in episode 82, and Michelle Bachmann, who, incidentally and not surprisingly, is married to perhaps the gayest closeted man in world history, Marcus
God.
Bachmann.
You're right. I totally forgot about him.
Yeah.
That guy
God.
didn't. I think he ran an gay conversion
Almost
therapy
certainly, yeah.
He did.
thing.
Please
He did
look him up on YouTube.
Doctor Heal Thyself. Like, that guy is Liberace on meth.
Yeah. He has 2 toy dogs, like some toy breed, that he dresses up in matching outfits himself.
Yeah.
That doesn't make one gay, but
But
But it doesn't not.
right. Well, I think if you went to their household and you saw that they have separate beds and the
Right.
dogs sleep with him, that's how you know.
Yeah. Oh, my God, that freak.
well, membership in these boards has its privileges, and Jeffress has had many occasions to find himself in his master's presence. If you do a Google image search of Jeffress and Trump, you will see dozens of photos of the two of them at rallies, at parties, on planes, and in the Oval Office. In the wake
Is that a sex thing in the Oval Office?
in the wake of the Stormy Daniels revelations, Jeffress rushed to, of course, Fox News to declare, quote, even if it's proven true, it doesn't matter, going on to say that policy matters more than the president's personal life.
Jesus Christ.
That sound you just heard was Bill and Hillary Clinton tearing the fabric of time and space.
Yeah. Honestly, that is absolutely their belief until it's about their
Right.
Somebody's
Just put the caveat in there for us. Come on.
Right. Come on.
In 2017, when Trump put a hold on DACA on the advice of a furiously masturbating Stephen Miller,
Okay. Nope.
Jeffress said this.
There's been too much dick talk on this show, and I'm the gay guy, okay?
We're renaming the
Stops
show
now.
Dick Talk with Doug and Dan. Like nearly every pastor in America, this is what he said. I want to see a solution for children threatened with deportation. I believe it is unbiblical to tear apart families and to punish people who are in our country illegally through no fault of their own, adding, the president is one of the most compassionate people I have ever been around.
Oh, yeah.
And he was sincerely torn with between his sincere compassion for the DACA recipients and the oath of office he took on January 20th to execute all the laws of the land.
Oh, that's right. That's what keeps Donald Trump up at night is his oath.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God, my oath I took. You ask any of his ex-wives about his oaths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you could extract hypocrisy from a human the way a Skeksis draws vitality elixir from a gelfling, and then record the sound of it off-gassing, it would sound like Robert Jeffress.
Oh, God.
Someone got that joke.
I feel like off-gassing is a term that is correctly applied to this man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no moral to this story. We live in a weird age where most of our religious citizens are being whipped up to violent fervency by a man designed in a laboratory to negate their entire belief system. And we have people like Pastor Robert Jeffress lubricating the hole with his spit. So, there you go.
Well, thanks for joining us for Dick Talk. It's been great.
However, there could be a happy ending to this because in July of 2020,
Happy ending. Still Dick Talk. What are we doing?
Pastor Jeffress is hosting a Pathway to Victory Alaskan cruise.
What?
Patreon goal.
Patreon goal. Oh, we need to be on that boat.
We can
Pray
get enough
for the
patrons.
iceberg.
If we can get enough patrons to get tickets, my promise to you is that I will contract E. coli, salmonella, norovirus, all of the hepatitises, and listeria, and proceed to cough on every doorknob and touch every buffet item with my unwashed hands. It may not be the solution we need, but it's the solution we deserve.
I'm just Googling, how do you spell torpedo? Because the Second Amendment says I can have one, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It's your
God.
right as an American.
Still more dick talk. We just can't stop with it. Okay.
Just relax and let it slide in. You'll like it.
Let it happen. All right, folks. That's dick
There
talk.
you go.
Let's move on.
Uncle Dan,
Hey, Uncle Doug.
I got a feeling.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a good one? Is
Well,
it itchy? And what part of you is it cropping up on?
do you remember in that Simpsons episode when Milhouse's father was getting divorced? He tried to start a recording career. He recorded a cassette called "Can I Borrow a Feeling?"
Oh.
The saddest thing I've ever seen to this day.
Yeah.
Well, I sometimes you have a feeling that's good or bad. It can be a fright or a tingle up your spine. But I think Uncle Mark's going to try and convince us that doesn't come from Dios.
Our Uncle Mark's the gay one, so he knows the most about feelings.
We're very emotional, us homosexuals. So,
I've seen
guys,
Birdcage. I know.
as is my habit, I'd like to invite the Spirit to be with us today.
Oh, God
As
bless
usual, opening with a reading from Moroni 10, chapters 3 through 5.
That's in the Book of Mormon for those of you who don't know the word
that is
Moroni.
the only book. So, behold, I would exhort you that when ye shall read these things, if it be wisdom in God that ye should read them, that ye would remember how merciful the Lord hath been unto the children of men, and from the creation of Adam, even down until the time ye shall receive these things and ponder it in your heart. Sorry, halfway through. And when ye shall receive these things, I would exhort you that ye would ask God, the eternal Father, in the name of Christ, if these things are not true, and if ye ask with a sincere heart, with real intent, having faith in Christ, he will manifest the truth of it unto you by the power of the Holy Ghost. And by the power of the Holy Ghost ye may know the truth of all things.
Wow.
Hey, Uncle Mark, how about a trigger warning next time?
Yeah, right.
Right?
You can't just launch into that shit.
And do you know what I just realized in that reading of Uncle Mark? Sorry to diverge for a second, but that is proof that the Book of Mormon was actually written by God, because nobody truly understands the proper use of a colon. No
That's
man.
right. That's right. So
I just like that it starts with like it feels like if you read these things, and if also the Lord thinks that it's a good idea for you to read these things, and also the reading of these things is probably a thing, and it's like designed to put you into a coma.
Yeah,
Right.
Joseph Smith definitely thought the way to spiritual enlightenment was word count. So this is, my friends, is called Moroni's Promise. This is in the aforementioned Book of Mormon. And this is how Mormons are gently commanded, but indeed commanded, to know the truth of their huge mess of a shitty book and its claims via a religious experience. Now, as we've discussed on the show many times, we three were Mormons. I was a little different from you guys, as I never had a huge affinity for the church and never really believed in a serious way. But you guys
like
were
a sucker.
You guys were all the way in for a while there. So did you guys use Moroni's Promise? And if so, did you have what Mormons would call a burning in the bosom, or the Spirit being with you? A religious experience?
Not only was I trying to use it on myself, I was trying to use it on other people in Honduras when I was on my mission.
That's right.
I was quite good at casting this particular spell to no effect.
So you
to
didn't
no
work for you,
effect.
Doug.
You had so many converts, you didn't know what to do with them all.
Yeah, but that was mostly because of my good looks.
Yeah.
That doesn't check out.
I mean, I tried to have this work for me, and I did in my mind at the time have a religious experience that, in hindsight, I think we're going to talk about this, was a little bit less than what I made it out to be.
Sure.
Yeah, I did. I took that scripture and then the other scripture that Joseph Smith himself used in the Bible, which was the "If any of you lack wisdom,
I think it's in James. Yeah.
let him ask of God, and He'll giveth to all men." And I went into a deep and very, very distressing 6 months of just desperately trying to get God to reveal to me the truth of His word and whatever. And if I had owned a whip, I would have been self-flagellating. But
Wow.
but I don't think I was doing it right. I think
the
I was
man a
doing
whip.
it wrong.
Get the man whipped is the lesson to learn from that. Well, I think on another segment we can talk about the insanely manipulative nature of that thing, of the quote Moroni's promise, right? That it's so larded up with societal pressure for it to succeed, and if you fail, it is entirely a flaw in you and not in the truth claim or the veracity of the material. We can talk about that horrible manipulation another time, and how many young hearts Jesus leaves standing at the altar and never shows up for. But today, I want to talk about what it means when one has a religious experience, a profound and perhaps even overwhelming mental and emotional phenomenon often ascribed to the presence of God or a sense of out-of-the-ordinary well-being. So I'm going to break some news here on the How To Heretic, like I do every week. But I submit we have all had a religious experience, and probably a lot of them. And the science, yes, the real science can back me up. So how can I make this outlandish claim? We human peoples are really just machines. Complex, but machines nonetheless. We are just a variety of physical structures, a bunch of chemical compounds, a touch of electricity, and perhaps most importantly, consciousness. And consciousness is an awareness of the self, the ability to observe and store information, your imagination, etc. It's all the really cool bits and the shitty bits of being alive. So you lump all that together in a world we still know far too little about, saturate existence with as yet unexplained phenomenon, and season with a fuckload of bad ideas about what those inexplicable things are, from times even stupider than the times we live in now, where we knew we're so much less about how the world works. And boom, religious experiences are going to religious experienced. So there's a super fascinating field of science working to understand this physiological occurrence that is religious belief called neurotheology. And I know that sounds like a garbage word like naturopathy, cryptozoology, or Scientology, but it's a real and for real scientific approach to figure out the wiring of belief. A note to anyone whose fingers are even now hurtling towards their keyboards to actually my ass via email. Neither myself nor my co-uncles are experts on neuroscience. But I did read about 8 articles on this in medical journals and watched 3 whole YouTubes. So that's about as much fucking scholarship as you'll ever find here from this free radio podcast. So I'm an expert on exactly 3 things, and 3 things only: Mormonism, screw-top wines under $12, and making movies. Something I've done for over 30 years. But that doesn't mean you out there aren't allowed to have an opinion about a movie while you're on the same planet as me. So curious, interested people are allowed to learn about things and have opinions about things you might know a lot about. So you're going to be all right.
But mostly if you're white and male.
That's right. Truly. And we get a lot of actually emails, and it's really mostly your guys' segments, but it's fine. I fix it.
That's because everyone fast forwards your segments.
Well, they're not stupid. So on to the science. Yes, Virginia, we can see religious experience happening in the brain. And in a holy shit fact, we can artificially cause it in the lab. More on that in a sec.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
It's super cool. So research was conducted in our fair city of Salt Lake by University of Utah School of Medicine smart guy, Dr. Jeff Anderson, using faithful Mormon subjects and an MRI machine.
Can I just say, just a quick side note, I actually know one of the students that was working on that project, and I was in the building, and I got to see the fMRI machine that did this, and those things are pretty cool.
How do you feel about that?
So you're a little bit connected to this.
Yeah, a little bit.
So Anderson ran his subjects through a variety of questions and audiovisual stimuli that were likely to trigger feelings of a spiritual nature in faithful Mormons. Those who described having had strong spiritual experiences showed markedly increased activity in the, bear with me, bilateral nucleus accumbens and the frontal attentional and ventromedial prefrontal cortical loci. Thank you for your patience, as it took my whole brain to pronounce those tiny bits of itself. So what does this tell us? That it tells us these are exactly the same centers of activity that light up when we engage in sex, take drugs, drive too fast, gamble, and those first moments of falling in love. Religious experiences, all. So, disclaimer, we cannot, and will not endorse or suggest drug use of any kind, but for anyone out there who's ever taken a powerful psychedelic like ecstasy, known also as Molly, the gush of serotonin, a brain chemical correlated to happiness, is exactly the same neurological experience as these Mormon kids had thinking about white Jesus. Although, again, based on experience that may or not be my own, that I am in no way condoning, I suspect the chemically induced tidal wave of warmth and well-being is of a somewhat higher megatonnage than listening to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir while laying in a tube. But Mormon's going to Mormon.
Does that mean that if I take a bunch of ecstasy, I become a Molly Mormon?
Hey-o!
Yeah, that's a deep cut for all of you Utahns that know what that reference is.
For your Nevermos, that just means a typically fanatical young blonde girl.
Yeah.
Boy, if there is no greater cure for a Molly Mormon than Molly. But I'm not endorsing that.
Yes,
not
indeed.
endorsing it. So, another interesting...
I'm endorsing it a little bit, but not a lot.
I think Andrew just pressed a button. So, okay. Another interesting finding in the brain imaging research is that people of different religions can experience some spiritual phenomena in different parts of their brains, which sounds weird, right? Since we all have the same hardware. But it actually kind of makes sense. A guy named Dr. Andrew Newberg, his research shows how he was able to show marked differences in the brains of meditating Buddhists and praying Catholic nuns. The Catholic nuns showed more activity in the subparietal lobe, which is the part of the brain that processes language, since Catholic prayer is long strings of words. The Buddhists, however, showed increased activity in the parts of the brain used for visualization, since visualization is commonly how one practices meditation rather than verbal activity. So those are pretty cool finds, I think.
Yeah.
And yes, though this is not an endorsement of any kind, exactly the same phenomenon of religious experience can be induced by ingesting certain drug compounds. It can also be done in the lab, not with drugs, but with a motherfucking helmet. That is right.
Say
Yes.
what?
Yeah, this is truth. It's a true.
You just hit him over the head with the helmet, and then they have a religious experience.
And then a little lump comes up, and
The little
parakeets
birds
fly
go
around
around.
their
Yeah,
head.
that's right.
Yeah.
So Dr.
But it's
Meisel,
okay because you could just use a mallet to bang the lump back in. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
We're old.
he got a grant from the government to develop that mallet. It's pretty cool. So Dr. Michael Persinger of the University of Ontario in Canada was able to have subjects say they felt the literal physical presence of God in the room by beaming highly targeted magnetic fields into their brains via a common yellow motorcycle helmet he modified.
Wow.
So, while just 20 of the 1,000 subjects swore they could see God himself in the room, a whopping 80% of the subjects felt a presence or had some other powerful spiritual experience.
Well, that's not unlike what I've read about in people who have temporal lobe epilepsy. I don't know if you guys have ever researched that at all, but a lot of people with temporal lobe epilepsy end up feeling like there are angels around them, or they have, God talks to them. They say that may have been what was afflicting people like Joan of Arc and a bunch of other people.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's also it can be true of traumatic brain injury as well. Part of the research I did talked about Vietnam. A certain number of Vietnam vets they studied that had injuries.
Yeah,
and a very specific part of your brain. I can't remember which one. Having been damaged can also make you feel like there's presences around you. So anyway, back to this crazy helmet. What does this? It's called the God helmet, by the way. And what does this tell us?
It's great. I love that.
We know pretty much exactly how some tiny bit of gland or something squirts through our head meat to make us think the dickhead we meet in Genesis is real. And we can pinpoint the exact spot in our squiggly fucking brains where we invent God. That is fucking amazing to me. And other than the small differences in brain activity between the specifics of devotional habits, Buddhists and Catholics I mentioned above, it means every religious experience is exactly the same thing. And all of those are exactly the same thing as amazing sex, as taking some pills at the club to get your boom boom on, winning big at the craps table, exactly the same thing.
Which is just a bunch of neurons like firing up.
Yeah,
it's just a
part of the
neurochemical
brain.
process that
brain
everybody
chemistry.
everybody with a brain capable has.
Or hear me out on this. It's a deity, an all-powerful deity talking directly to you.
Right.
Yes, it's probably that. So please be disregarding any preachy-ass Mormon who thinks their little Mormon brains are the only ones that give them a little squirt of endorphin whenever they have a peak experience. And also please be ignoring any kind of religious gatekeeper trying to convince you that only by praying at their altar and dropping your money in their plate can they then allow you to know God through a universal neurochemical experience you've already had with your first crush, the first race you won, the magical morning when you got a puppy for Christmas and your heart exploded, the first time you looked into your baby's eyes and melted. Religion has tried to co-opt, they have tried to steal one of the most beautiful parts of being human in order to sell it back to you as a magic trick that only they can do for you. So I say don't let them.
What's amazing about it is that, like, you ask any Mormon or anybody who's a member of a religion that thinks that they have sort of the exclusive provenance of this thing.
Right.
And they'll tell you that they've had that feeling and that it could only have happened in the way that it happened in the place, with the beliefs that they've used, and completely ignore the fact that it's happening in all of these other environments with all of these other religions. Like,
right.
Other people are having exactly the same spiritual fucking experience that you are. They're feeling the spirit, and they believe entirely different things than you.
And by outward appearances, most people are having better religious experiences than you are. Right?
Oh, well, then Mormons for sure.
For sure.
Right. So I want to throw out two very profound, non-substance induced, because that's not a thing we can or will endorse, air quotes, religious experiences of my own. And then ask if you guys can recall having any. So just 20 or so years ago, Doug and I were in Lima, Peru, and for some stupid reason wanted to go swimming in the ocean and didn't give a shit that it was after dark. So we took a cab a few miles to the beach and ran out into the surf. And you would not be able to tell by looking at us now, but we were both really good swimmers, one considerably better than the other. Anyway, we went really far out, probably way too far. It was like a mile or so into just utter blackness. And it was a moonless night, so I rolled over on my back to let Doug catch up. And the stars were unbelievable. The city was so far away, and there I was just floating in an unknown depth of this ocean I'd never been in before, in the vast Pacific. And I think looking up at the stars, and I think for the first time in my life, my mind fully grasped my profound insignificance in the endlessness of everything. It was a completely life-altering moment. It was beautiful. The second is more recent. Last week when Doug said to pause the podcast and to go to Spotify to play a song under our voices that we couldn't play on air for copyright reasons. Okay, do that again now, but with Ennio Morricone's The Ecstasy of Gold. You back? Okay, good. So a few years back, I was driving home from a job in southern Utah, and it was a couple days before Christmas, so it was the dead of winter. And I took the long way so I could drive through Zion National Park. And if you don't know it, it's a massive, spectacular fucking Red Rock Canyon. It's breathtaking. And I didn't see another car anywhere in the park. It was like I had it to myself. And as I started up the switchback road under the towering cliffs on the east side, this blizzard came out of nowhere just as this song came on my shuffle. And I felt like I was alone on Mars, crawling up this crimson Olympian temple in a near whiteout with this mad woman screaming opera at me over a fucking hurricane of horns and bells. I nearly went external. My brain was just drowning in serotonin, and it was a fully sober sensory peak experience out of nowhere. And in neither of those cases, not for a second, did I think, you know what? Jesus.
Right.
Now how about you guys? Any great moments to report?
Well, okay, everybody switch over to Thunderstruck by AC/DC right now. I tried, so like I mentioned before, when I was religious, I tried to force myself to have a religious experience. And if I did experience something, in hindsight, it was like one of those little hobby horses outside of Kmart you put the coins in. Mm-hmm. And the first time I, had a few drinks and fooled around with someone, and let's say, since we're not endorsing any kind of illicit drug use on this podcast, had a little bit of glint, that was like straddling a Saturn V rocket as it blasted off. Right. And I understand now why religions don't want you to fool around with other people or have some glint or cocktails, because it's way, way better. Right. For the purposes of this podcast. A couple of years ago, I went up to Idaho for the solar eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of those spots where it was 100%. It was fantastic. And when it happened, any of you who have not seen one, I recommend highly that you find a way to get to one. And those of you who have will know what I'm talking about. It's unbelievable. It's an incredible experience when the sun is blotted out. The animals in the field start howling because they're terrified. And to have that experience of the universe, this cosmic ballet, and have it unshackled by any religious dogma was truly remarkable. I mean, it was an amazing transcendental experience where I felt at once completely insignificant and also completely, a part of everything around me. So and it's so much better without religion in the way. Just putting that out there.
That's interesting.
And that's a nice callback because that was Stanley, Idaho, right? That you
That's
went
right.
To. That's right. That's where I wore my Bigfoot feet.
I tried to find your footprints. I went. Hey, what was the name of that beast, by the way? Did I have one?
I think it was called the Wendigo. Yeah.
That's very good. All right.
Okay.
All right. How about you, Dan?
It's funny because since I've left religion, I think I was such an intense kid who tried to do religion so intensely, and I was such a dramatic little shit of a kid. I think I went a lot more Zen as just once I left religion and sort of left it behind. And I don't think that I experienced a lot of the big highs and lows that I experienced back when I was a religious guy. Like, I was trying for it back then, and I think it was too much.
You wore your brain out.
I think I did. I did. So I don't really do a lot of I don't have super duper highs and I don't have super duper lows anymore. I keep myself pretty even keeled.
I'm gonna get you a yellow helmet. We'll see if we can hook it up again.
Thank you.
And some glint.
Yes. Well, we're gonna do both. We're gonna do all.
So to wrap this one up, guys, remember just a nice little coda to share with your friends. Remember that those Mormon kids in the MRI machine that felt like they were experiencing the presence of Jesus? Just remember to tell those young Mormon friends of yours that when they have some yummy in the tummy, thinking about Jesus, they're pretty much just hands-free masturbating while they think about a pretty white hippie dude. So you're welcome. That's religious experience in a nutshell.
There you go. All right. Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you so much, Uncle Mark. I had a religious experience with you telling me about that. Let's move along.
Moving on.
I'm Jesus.
Oh, fellas.
Hello.
Present.
We do this thing, and we like to connect with our listeners.
Yeah.
And probably the best way for them to connect back is monetarily. Wouldn't you say? That's
filthy fucking lucre. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right
Disgusting. Yeah, I mean, it's the root of all evil, and since we're a show about evil, you probably should give us some of your money.
Unburden yourself of your evil and send it to us.
Burden us. We take your burden upon us.
They call us the hoot of all evil.
God damn it. I quit the show.
Yeah, me too.
More money for me.
Okay, we don't make much money, but there are some people who really appreciate what we do, and we really appreciate them, and we need to thank them. So this week we have some new patrons who are Brian, Tinker's Dam, and James, and Doug. Okay.
Oh,
I was just making sure I got everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining the throngs who are willing to just pony up a little bit every week.
We love you for that.
You get to choose how much you want to do. You can just go to howtoheretic.com and then click on Mark asked you to go there at the beginning of the show anyway to pick out a fun little part.
While you're there, yeah.
You can just you can just click on the support us thing and go join up.
Yeah. Yeah,
And hey, guys, everybody out there, if you're picking segments to send to people, don't just choose mine. Be nice. All right? I know, and I appreciate it, but come on.
Yeah, because everybody's going to want to hear about General Conference this week.
Yeah, that's a barn burner, that one. And if you really appreciate Doug's General Conference content, but you don't have any dough, you can go anywhere to give us 5 stars. You know the drill. It's free. If you got the internet, you got some way to get on it, you can give us 5 stars, and it doesn't cost you a nickel. So do that if you can, and let's carry on. Well, Uncle Doug.
Hello.
There was a movie when we were kids called The Never-Ending Story.
Yes.
And
Shut up.
Its betrayal was made incredibly keen by the release of The Never-Ending Story Part 2. So, and there was a really freaky mechanical dog dragon that gave me nightmares. But
that was so nightmare-inducing.
Did you know that I just read that there is a museum, I think in Germany, where you can actually see that dog dragon, creepy
Really?
dog dragon. Yeah, and other props from that movie.
Well, I yearn to go there. But until then, we are on The Never-Ending Story Part 4.
Should we see if we can have an ending to our own never-ending story?
It's going to end. You guys, I'm ending it. This is the last one. I don't care what happens.
What are you going to talk about today, Uncle Dan?
Oh, my God. Exodus. Look, every week for the last 3 weeks, I have started in with the goal of getting through the story of the biblical Exodus that week. And then every time I've tried, the Lord kept throwing one lunatic detail in after another at me, forcing me to take all this time on the bizarre or absurd or literally impossible minutiae, and then I had to continue to the next week. So
I'm excited. I have high hopes because I believe, like the Rocky franchise, Part 4 is going to be the best.
yes, call me Clubber Lang.
That's Part 3.
Oh, God damn it. Okay, well,
Ivan Drago.
There's a new Rambo coming out. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Called Last Blood. Seriously, it's happening.
Yeah. So nothing but good things in the world. Here we go.
Yes.
I'm gonna get us through this goddamn thing. So when last we left our people, I'm not gonna do a recap, but
Our chosen people.
Exodus chapter 18 is an entire chapter in which the only thing that happens is that Moses' father-in-law Jethro comes to visit and teaches Moses that maybe it wouldn't be the best idea in the world for him to handle every petty squabble among the 1 million+ people he's leading through the desert.
Has Jethro, has Moses' father been a part of the story at all until
It's
now?
his father-in-law.
Oh.
So yes, he was a part.
okay.
So you remember when I started this?
I don't remember that.
No, of course not. It was 1 million years ago. But actually, Moses was working as a shepherd.
That's right. I do remember
for
that,
his
yeah.
father-in-law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all true.
It's all true. It all lines up. So Jethro has this genius idea that nobody had ever thought of before to appoint representatives to handle the boring stuff.
Oh.
Great. It's a really smart thing. Anyway, now we come to chapter 19, and this is apparently the first day of the 3rd month since they left Egypt. So
Okay.
So I guess that means it's been 2 months. I'm not sure on the math on that. Anyway, yeah, don't do that. Anyway, now we come to chapter 19. This is apparently the first day of the 3rd month since they left Egypt, and they finally made it to Mount Sinai. So to give you a sense of the distance that they've traveled, it's tough to know for sure, but something like 260 miles. They've made it in a couple months.
All right.
That's roughly the same as walking from Salt Lake City to Cedar City for you Utahns, or walking from Santa Barbara to San Diego, which, considering Southern California traffic, might take less time than driving, depending on the day.
Yeah.
Or a little further than New York to Boston, or New York to D.C., or London to Lancaster, or Rome to Florence, or Tokyo to Ishinomaki.
Comparative distances with Dan.
For reference, you guys, I like to go down dumb rabbit holes. Anyway, they're camped at the foot of Mount Sinai, and the Lord calls to Moses from the mountain and says, "Psst, Moses, come here. Okay, here's what I want you to tell the people." And I'll just quote the Bible here. "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." All right. And then the rest of God's beloved children throughout the world said collectively, "Gee, thanks, asshole."
Fuck you, dude.
God.
Yeah.
So there you go. Apparently they're to be, and also not for nothing, but is this not the epitome of gaslighting? His version of carrying these people on the wings of eagles is to put them through horrific plagues, get them chased by Pharaoh, have them almost starve multiple times in the desert, and then live off ground bird shit wafers forever. Yeah. And add to that the fact that he purposefully constructed his covenant to be completely counter to human nature. It's pretty much impossible to obey fully. So we as a species we're just not capable of it. And he's a good God.
I would think that the rest of the communities of the world would be thankful to have not been the chosen ones.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has not worked out super well.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But he keeps promising it's going to happen any moment now. We're going to feel great. So the Israelites anyway agree to be good little children forevermore. And that's good enough for the great I Am. And he appears to Moses in a dense cloud, and all the people hear him talking to Moses, which is God's way of ensuring that they'll always put their trust in Moses. It's a good trick. Should work out just great.
Right.
So there's a lot of craziness on the mountain, thunder and trumpet sounds and fire and smoke, because the Lord came down to it. And then there was quite a bit of discussion as to who could come up. And basically the Lord decided that only Moses and Aaron would come up to talk to him. And none of the people, even the priests, were allowed to rush the gates or they'd die. So also pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right.
So Moses and Aaron head up the mountain to chapter 20 to receive the 10 Commandments. We did it!
Boy.
We made it to the 10 Commandments! We're almost done! And now I won't actually go through the commandments themselves. If you want to know more about those, and they are not as simple a subject as we're all led to believe, I'll refer you to episode 17, and then Mark's sneaky addendum in episode 28. Suffice it to say that the first 4 are all about worship me the most.
Yes.
And the rest are a collection of the most obvious rules possible and a couple of things that don't really matter.
And really also don't like a thing a lot.
Yeah, don't. For whatever you do, don't like stuff. Yeah, especially if somebody else has that stuff, don't want it.
Yeah, if that ox in your neighbor's yard is really attractive, stop it.
Right.
Well,
stop
a
it.
tremendous number of omissions of very obvious things as well.
Yes, indeed. But hold your horses. We'll get there. Anyway, this isn't where we get the stone tablets. I was confused about that. I thought that that's what was happening now. No, that's not for another 4 chapters. The Lord just says the 10 Commandments to them. And it's not at all clear in the writing who he says them to.
I was about to ask.
It's likely to Moses and Aaron, but possibly to everybody? Like, immediately after God says it, the people are all terrified and ask Moses to be the go-between for them and God, so they won't have to hear God speak because they'll die. So it feels like everybody may have heard it. It's badly written. It's unclear. Anyway, Moses comforts their terror with this charming paradox. Do not be afraid. God has come to test you so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning.
That's not how fear works.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely fear, but don't.
Right.
And they did, or didn't. So, if you thought that the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob was going to be satisfied with just 10 rules, you haven't been paying attention. No, once that guy gets started on rule making, you can't stop him. So the first things first, God reiterates his rule number 2, no pretend gods, especially if they're made out of gold or silver. He just really can't stress that enough.
It's totally like Fight Club. The first and second rule are basically the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But don't worry, that won't come up. This whole gold and silver thing, that's not going to come up. Don't.
Interestingly, he did not specifically mention anything about butter. Like a butter sculpture. They're
butter
very
god?
popular. Yeah, a butter god. They're very popular at state fairs.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's why the state fairs have them, because they found the loophole.
Yeah, you may have that savory graven image. I think that's kind of an encouragement he missed out on.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Okay, so brace yourself, because here comes the flood of rules, and it ain't pretty. God's going to attempt to create the entire Hebrew legal system in one fell swoop. So I had to go through. I tried to bring in some of the rules because they're crazy and awful and just madness. But honestly, I don't have time to get into all of it. It's chapter after chapter after chapter of this goddamn book. The first set is what to do
weasels
with
mentioned.
Let's just say yes.
Yeah.
The first set is a bunch of rules about what to do with your slaves. So that's nice.
And my guess is not free them.
No.
Right.
Well, actually, you do have to free them if they're male and they've been under your employ for 6 years and they were given to you or sold to you. And anyway,
it's complicated.
It's better to. I will say this: it's better to be a male slave than a female slave. Let's just leave it at that. But I do love the fact that they've been 2.5 months out from their bondage, their captivity in Egypt, and already they've got a whole hierarchy thing happening with their own slaves. So
right, exactly.
Real cute. They definitely had a chance to create a new and healthy society.
Lessons learned.
That's what they went with. Anyway, there's a long section next regarding rules about personal injuries. Holy shit, that is not a good way to run a society. This is, by the way, where we get one of those great verses to use on Christian anti-abortion nuts to prove that the Bible does not consider a fetus a human. That would be Exodus 21, verse 22, which says that if men are fighting and they hurt a pregnant woman and she loses the baby, but the woman is fine, then the guy is to be punished with a fine. But if the woman dies, then it's a life for a life.
Right. And I think that's in. You covered that in Numbers too.
Yeah,
so he tends to repeat himself, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, there you go. So anyway, pretty clear stuff. There are rules about if you poke out a servant's eye. There are rules about if you dig a pit and somebody's ox fall in. It is extensive. How many rules he is getting fucking specific. Then there's the personal property section. So if you kill a thief at night, that's fine. But if you kill him after sunrise, you're guilty of bloodshed. There's rules about illegal possession of a donkey. Then there's the social responsibility section. The first rule in this section is about if a man sleeps with a woman who isn't yet spoken for by another man, that man must then pay the bride price. That's the phrase in the Bible, the bride price. And then she shall be his wife. Cool. Want to ask the woman what her take is on any of this? No? No. Cool. Anyway, finally, we get back to the action. So, we've made it through 4 chapters of bullshit. And we're back into, I'll skip all the stuff about how the Lord's going to totally give them that land of milk and honey just real soon. But the Lord calls Moses up to the mountain. Apparently he was back down again. And Moses grabs his right-hand dude, Joshua, this time, and they go up. Or did they? Because the narrative gets a little weird. I'm thinking that maybe what actually happens is that there are various base camps going up, because he gets all of the elders of the thing, and they go up part way, and then he and Joshua go up another part way, and then I think he leaves Joshua behind and goes up the rest of the summits.
Like an Everest expedition.
Yeah, exactly. Joshua is his tensing Norgay. Anyway, up they go, and Moses has to wait at base camp 2 for 6 days because of God clouds that are surrounding things. And then on the 7th day, God called him up into the cloud to the top of the mountain and he stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights. That is a long time to hang out on the top of what Google image search assures me is an entirely barren mountain.
Right.
In that time, More rules! Holy shit! Make a tabernacle. Make an ark that will melt a Nazi face if they open it. 7 fucking chapters of tabernacle rules. Jesus Christ, can we please finish this story? Finally, so I'm skipping all of that. I mean, it is specific about what the tabernacle needs to be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How many cubits on a side and all that shit.
What fabrics to use and and by the way, how do they have all of these like scarlet fabrics and whatever?
Who knew that God was such a bitchy interior designer?
Oh my God, it is crazy.
Yeah.
Finally, in chapter 32, we get the story of the golden calf.
Yay!
Moses has been gone like a month, and that's a long time, but not that long.
Not in smelting time.
Right? I mean, come on. Come on. It's not enough time that everybody forgets about God and is like, we got to have something.
I guess the temptation to worship a golden idol is pretty fucking strong.
Yeah.
And by the way, who is the ringleader who convinces everybody to give up their gold so they can melt it down and form it into the image of a calf? Was it Dathan, the Israelite grumbler-in-chief from the movie? No. Cecil B. DeMille just made that guy up. It was Aaron, Moses' own fucking brother, who was there the whole time and had a front row seat for every fucking miracle God performed.
Right.
And like his brother's gone for less than 2 months, and he's like, "Oh, you know what, guys? Obviously, this is all bullshit. Let's make us a cow."
Have you guys ever seen a golden cow? They're pretty fucking cool. You know what I mean? We've joked about this before with the Israelites, but they have no God permanence, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
The second the God is out of frame, it's like, well, here we go. Ting, 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 ting.
yeah. And then everybody did. They just went with it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we worship a gold calf now? Cool." And God is furious, and Moses is furious. And in his fury, Moses goes down and he breaks the brand new stone tablets that God made especially for him, and he grabs the calf and he burns it in the fire, then grinds it down into a powder. Pretty sure that's not how gold works at all. And scatters it into the water and makes the Israelites drink it.
It's a bit dramatic.
Right?
Yeah.
These days, if you want table service with a bottle of Goldschlager, you got to pay for that shit.
Yeah.
Right? I could go on and talk about more crazy shit that happens, but I am going to stop here because the whole time through all 4 weeks that I have delved into this story, I have wanted to get to a single question.
Yeah.
Look, you're a Hebrew slave. The God you've been taught to worship your whole life has suddenly become very active. Like, it's not the God that we all grew up with, who you're just assured is there, and maybe in an MRI you sort of get a sense that you get a warm tingle feeling. No, this is he has parted a sea for you. He has destroyed your enemies. He has fed you in the desert, but also made it crystal clear that if you piss him off, he will fucking wreck you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know without any doubt in your mind that he will. Like, these are things that you saw with your eyes and felt with your body. And,
recently.
And it all happened within the last month and a half or 3 months. My question is, with all of that in mind, I'm supposed to believe that these people in the span of a month and a half forgot all of that and turned to worshiping a metal cow?
Right. It's just, it is baffling. It's baffling as a narrative. It doesn't, there are so many problems with this book. And we've already talked about how, archaeology does not back up any of these claims, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
It's like when we talked about, when I asked you guys the question on a podcast, I don't know, weeks ago, what would it take for you to believe? And we talked about how, believers are always saying, well, atheists know there's a God, they just mad at him.
Right, yeah.
This is the distillation of that stupid idea, right? This God has proven in very weird ways that he exists. to these
he
people.
He hasn't proven that he's a good person or that, but he has certainly proven that he has magical powers beyond anything anybody has ever seen.
Yeah, which godlike, right? This is a godlike entity, and even if it's a bad one, which it is, but even if it's an evil god, don't piss him off. Like, this is real to you.
He has literally you just heard him less than a month ago. Right. You heard his own voice come down from the mountain and say, "Don't fucking worship anybody else." And you were like, "That sounds right."
Yeah, it's like they're like children.
They're worse than children. They're goldfish.
Right.
There's no chance that that even 10 human beings in this situation you couldn't find a group of 10 human beings where the majority would turn to idol worship in this amount of time.
Right.
If the three of us had been through this, right? If the three of us guys had been out in the desert, slave thing, Red Sea, Pharaoh, columns of fire, thing, and Doug left to go do something, and Dan, you turned to me and was like, "Yeah, fuck that shit, right? Let's make a gold butter cow." I'd be like, "You're out of your fucking mind."
Yeah.
No.
It's just
stay the course here, buddy. Yeah.
It's unless they're all suffering from a million strong case of collective desert madness.
Madness.
This is not a possible thing that could happen with humans. So
it is tremendously irrational. It's just terrible storytelling.
Yeah,
it's just the worst storytelling. You can't convince me that there is anything okay about any of the things that I have said in this 4-part torture series.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you have it. I'm done. I'm sick of it. This God is insane, and anyone who worships it is also just not paying attention. That's all there is to it.
Anybody, if this narrative were true, anybody who doesn't worship him is insane. The sane thing is to worship him until he hopefully goes away and chooses another people, right? But if you didn't
directly experience these things, and you're in the world that I'm in, and you read this story, there's no way for you to sanely say, "Oh yeah, that could have happened."
Right. Yeah, to challenge all religious people, read Exodus.
Read it with me.
Because you haven't.
And we'll read it together, and I'll ask you some questions in the middle of it, and let's just see where we land.
You've read verses of it, but you've never read it like a book.
Right.
Read it like a book.
And you can skip the rules sections because they're crazy, but don't they're fucking crazy.
Look at the mind behind those rules.
Yeah.
Right? That's examine the mind behind the rules and this behavior.
And those are rules, and the rules themselves are not rules that like the Israelites came up with their wisest, rule makers. No. Those are handed down directly from the Lord God, his damned self.
Right.
Yeah. Down to like what you can eat and building codes.
And
it's
fucking
mental.
What happens if a cow falls in a hole? That is an important rule for a god to hand down to you, like how you handle the cow hole scenario. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like designating where crosswalks are going to be. It's like, you know what, we'll handle that.
Yeah, you got bigger fish to fry.
Maybe we'll figure that out on our own.
You tell us the big, you handle the big issues. We'll manage down here. We'll handle traffic law.
If you say an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, you don't then have to go in and elaborate. Oh, well, it's different, though, if it's a servant's eye. And
Well, if it's a bicuspid, then you can remove 2 incisors.
You have no idea how close you are to the correct thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Go ahead and read your Bible. It's a treasure trove.
Or let us read it for you. My God, what we go through for you people.
Indeed.
But we love you.
With that said, let us finally escape Exodus.
Woo-hoo.
Bye. Well, friends, that is it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you know how to make a calf out of gold, send an email or a golden calf to howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you're just pining for Exodus Part 5, you can leave us a voicemail about it at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. You can also please not ask me to do that on Twitter at HowToHeretic.
And much love and thanks to our patrons.
And thanks to the wonderful Cody Layton for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye-bye, friends.
Bye.